will try to mute.
Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. All right. We are live now on the Night Report podcast postgame show. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me is Rutgers beat reporter Alec Crowdhamel. Just got back from the game. What a uniquely awful performance by this team. We've said all year that this team cannot seem to find a way to put together a complete game, and that certainly was the case once again today. The defense, in my opinion, was the main culprit in this loss, along with some terrible game decisions, in-game decisions made by the head coach. We'll get into that and a lot of other things, I'm sure, some existential crises. You were at the game. What was your general takeaway from watching in person?
That was really bad. Basically, every single time it seemed like they would get a little bit of something to go their way on offense. The defense just let up another big play. And even I thought the offense did play a pretty good game. I thought Ethan had his most impressive performance. I would say arguably better than the Virginia Tech game, in my opinion. But the defense, they just could not stop anything. They struggled to get pressure. Whenever they did get pressure, they managed to make positive things happen. Unfortunately, it did not happen enough. The tackling was, once again, a disaster. There was coverage busts all over the place that led to big plays after big play after big play. 478 yards and 35 points to a team that had not scored 20 points in a game coming into today. The team is injured to all hell. Who knows what team's going to look like in Los Angeles on Friday. It's just not good.
Yeah, this is a team, like Alec said, their season high in scoring was 17 points. They were 1-5, albeit playing one of the more difficult schedules in the country. It doesn't matter. This is a team that we should have beaten. They had arguably the worst offensive line in the Power 5. I think they allowed the most sacks in the Power 4. They were a team that came into this game averaging 273 yards a game, and they put up 478 against Rutgers. This is a team that, like Alex said, hadn't scored 20 points. The season high was 17. They put up double that, 35 today. The linebackers, once again, were awful in coverage. We did a pretty good job running the ball, and it's also because they're terrible running the ball. This is a team that came into this game, I think, averaging like 92 yards rushing per game. They hadn't, as a team, rushed for over 100 yards all season. If you're looking for a small win, that's one of them. Rutgers did not allow them to rush for 100 yards as a team, but they also didn't really do anything well defensively. This is a quarterback last week who threw 3 interceptions to Minnesota, had 4 sacks, and he looked like a Heisman candidate. Ethan Garbers coming into this game was completing 60% of his passes. He had 4 touchdowns to 9 interceptions in 5 games, and he was sacked 15 times. Today, he was 32 for 38 for 383 yards, 4 touchdowns, 9 carries for 48 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. If you were telling me coming like with no context whatsoever that just Rutgers was 4-2 and Ethan Garber, like we didn't have a record for UCLA, like you could have convinced me that Ethan Garbers was like a future NFL quarterback, the way we made him look. Now, I'm not saying he is that good. He completed 84% of his passes against us. Just like, we'll get into what Greg said afterwards, but this was a can't lose game and we lost. I don't see a game, and I know this is going to sound pretty doom and gloom. I don't see another win on this schedule for Rutgers. You know, they're going to use, like I said this before the game on the Discord, that there's just enough injuries for Greg to kind of use that as the main excuse for why we lost. But I just, like, there was nothing the last 2 weeks that made me think, oh yeah, we're going to turn it around this week. Like, UCLA has slowly been getting better, even though they've been losing. Like, they almost beat Minnesota at home last week. They were up with like 6 minutes left, or sorry, they were up with like 2 minutes left in the game, and Minnesota scored late to win. But this wasn't a team that we could sleepwalk and beat, and we were sleepwalking way too long in this game, especially on defense. But yeah, man, I'm so just defeated. I'm so happy basketball season's coming because this is going to be a really tough team to cover over the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it all. Like Ethan Garbers, if this was your first time watching Ethan Garbers, you would have thought, how is this team 1-5? I mean, it wasn't even just he was making plays to the tight ends, to the running backs. They had a lot of screens. The running backs had a lot of big plays, including one of the most obvious bad plays was the wheel route that I watched the replay. I'm still not entirely sure what happened. I think it was to the running back Keegan Jones.
Yep.
He got out of the backfield, took a wheel route for, I think it was like 49 yards for a touchdown. What it looked like to me, now I could be wrong, I haven't gone back and watched the play yet. It looked like there was man coverage. Moses Walker and Tyrone Powell were both watching the quarterback, and someone blew their assignment and left him wide open. And I mean, they got to him, like Greg Schiano said. You got to him just a little bit too late, and he's fast, so he's gonna kill you with that. Yeah, the run defense was solid, minus the Ethan Garber's long touchdown of 49 yards that he had, where he juked Desmond Igbenogson out of his shoes, and then just ran around his blocks. I mean, I don't think it was a hold. There was any holds on that, but it looked like it based on the way he just got around those blocks. Yeah, the pass rush had a couple of successes, including the strip sack by Keontae Hamilton. They got to Garbers a couple of times, but that did not happen often. And it just showed, this is not a good UCLA offensive line, and they just could not overcome that. UCLA went 7 for 13 on third down. They had up to 478 yards of total offense. I think if I'm doing my math right, I think Ethan Garbers was responsible for 431 of those, 383 yards passing, 48 yards rushing. It was just it was really bad. Yeah, I thought that was Moses Walker on the wheel route. At least that's what it looked like to me. So I haven't rewatched the play, but yeah, just way too many things that went wrong in that game. The tackling was bad. The pass rush was not good. The coverage struggled at times down the field. They had 223 yards after the catch. Greg Schiano talked about that in his post game.
Bad.
You cannot have that and expect to win a Big Ten game.
A few anecdotes. UCLA came into this game on the season converting 33.8% of their third downs. Like you said, converted 57% today. UCLA only had 1 3-and-out all day, and that was that first drive in the second half. Of their 9 other drives, so they had 9 drives outside of the kneel down at the end of the game. One was a 3-and-out, and they forced 1 other punt, but that was after 10 plays and 49 yards. On their other 7 drives, touchdown, 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 missed field goal, fumble. So they were just scoring a touchdown every time they touched the ball, and it was primarily because of big plays. We forced a lot of third downs, and they were just able to convert on either third down or fourth. I think the most crystal clear juxtaposition of this game, in my opinion, of teams playing to win and teams playing not to lose, was in that second quarter when Greg Schiano decides to run the ball in like 3rd and 8. Kyle Monungai picks up 6 yards right around midfield to set up a 4th and 2. They do the typical like hard count, trying to get the defense to jump off sides. Doesn't work. Ethan stares to the sideline for about 12 seconds, and it's ticking. I'm thinking to myself, oh, they're going to like call a timeout and get a better play in. No, they take the 5 yards and they end up punting. So they take the delay game. They punt it away to UCLA. And in fairness, great punt. I think they got them down to like the 9-yard line. And then UCLA on 3rd and 12 get like 11.5 yards from their own 19-yard line on 4th and maybe 1. They decide to go for it on a QB sneak. I don't think you can diametrically be more opposed in thought process. Foster not being scared, Foster knowing that like we're going to need to keep scoring in order to have a chance to win this game, and Schiano thinking he could do this like turtle game that he wants to do every single game. And it blew up in his face. And that's not the only reason we lost this game, but it's like you stack little moments like that throughout the game.
It's very
like
indicative.
end of the first half. He decides to like do this Jekyll and Hyde act where okay, now I'm going to be aggressive. We stopped them on first down to set it up to be like a 2nd and 12. I think we got a sack. Maybe it wasn't a sack. It was like I knew it was a loss of 2. Set up 2nd and 12.
Yeah.
We call it an immediate timeout. Say, oh, we're being aggressive now. Next thing you know, UCLA has like a 17-yard gain, and now they're moving. I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, but I do not think that UCLA, if Rutgers just let UCLA run the clock, I don't think UCLA would have went and tried to score there. I think they were happy with going into the halftime with a 4-point lead, 14-10. But because they had success on that next play, it's like, okay, now go tempo. Let's go. Let's try and get this. So it's just like he constantly picks like the wrong times to try and be either tricky or to be aggressive, and it rarely works. And it's partly on execution, yeah, but it's also partly on like, are we just like hoping these games can be these 21-19 shootouts? Because that's just not realistic in today's day of offensive football, especially with how UCLA was playing up to that point. They were getting whatever they wanted offensively. So you knew if you had your pulse on the game that we were going to have to keep scoring, and you keep scoring by being aggressive. And that was just, I don't know, he was just picking the wrong times for aggressiveness. It felt like felt like a compensation thing. It's like, okay, well, we should have probably went for it on 4th down. Let's, we'll get it back here. And there was just no way where we're going to stop them 3 plays in a row on defense. It just wasn't in the cards today.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree that they would have been, content with going to the half after the sack. I think they were going tempo regardless, but I mean, we'll never know, honestly. But yeah, that timeout, giving them an extra 30 seconds certainly didn't help. They scored with 22 seconds to go. Yeah, for the record, I didn't disagree with the 2-point decisions. I heard Schiano's explanation in the press conference. It's math, and in some of those where you're not having a lot of drives, period, because there's so many sustained drives taking a lot of time. I don't hate trying to make, instead of a 4-point game, a 3-point game. I don't hate the decision. I didn't hate a lot of the decisions to go for 2, but yeah, with some of the 4th downs, I just didn't get it. Like if you're gonna run the ball on 3rd and 9. You're probably not expecting to get a first down. Maybe with Commandant guy, it's different. But he gets 7, and then you just kind of, I don't even know what the word is. You just kind of lay down and just say, well, we tried. And when you have a 4th and 1 like that, you have to go for it. Like going back to what Schiano was saying, like you don't have a lot of sustained drives. He said you usually have 5 or 6 drives in the first half. They had 3. So you've got to take your chances when you get them. It's just,
So I just want to break down that thought process. So, okay, it's 3rd and 8, 39, whatever it was. I think it was 3rd and 8. So are you basically saying unless we rush for this, we're punting regardless? Like this is a surrender down at this point? Because we were playing really well we were completing a lot of passes through the air. Like Ethan was really humming in that first, like the whole game, honestly. So are you saying as a coach, unless we can rush for this, we're just happy punting it away and like playing for another day? That to me is like insane.
I hope not. I'm not saying that's what he's thinking. I'm not trying to like go into his mind. I don't think that's what he's saying, but it's like, it's one thing to do this if you have a defense that has been suffocating all year long. Like, if you're Iowa, you can live with that. But you gotta read what's been going on in the game. Like the defense has not been able to get stopped. They are very injured. They are missing a lot of different contributors. And it's just, you have to be able to take advantage of some of those opportunities. And again, it's not like, Rutgers was completely stymied on offense. I think this was one of their better offensive performances. Like you said, Ethan was really playing well in that first half. That long bomb to Ian Strong, very impressive. I thought him and Demir Miller had a really good connection. He had 5 catches for 70 yards to lead the way in terms of receptions. I thought they were really cooking. Putting Christian Dremel, I got to give props to Schiano and Kirkstrocker for putting Christian Dremel back out in the starting lineup, and they kind of rotated Miller and Dremel within the outside and the slot at times. I thought that was a good job during the week of recognizing they need to get this guy back out on the field. But once it came to, the actual calls on the field, it just left something to be desired.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm going to try and get to some of these comments. Delmar Fishing, thanks once again for the super chat. The UCLA wide receivers and running backs were so open, it looked like they were going through rehearsals in their defense on the field. That wheel route was on Moses Walker. I totally agree. We kept getting beat on the same stuff. The tight ends across the middle were just killing us. The dump offs to running backs. It'd be one thing, like, I think they would have been happy allowing that dump off to the running backs if the defense wasn't missing so many tackles. Like, there were plenty of times where we could have gotten that back down for a minimal gain that turned into a big play or a first down because the first guy missed and the second guy missed. There's just certain guys that I don't really know how they're still getting as much playing time as they are. And I guess I kind of know because of the injury situation, but like, there's just a lot of guys who are not playing as well as they should be, given that this might be their third, fourth, maybe even sometimes fifth year in the program. And that's on coaching, that's on development, that's on talent evaluation. That's ultimately everything kind of flows back up to Greg in terms of, you know, if the guys aren't good enough to play here, why are they here? If they're not ready to play, why are they not ready? If they're, you know, whatever. There's just a lot of stuff going on.
I mean, when two running backs combine, so Keegan Jones had 5 catches, 114 yards and a touchdown. TJ Harden 5 catches for 34 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that just can't happen. And then Jalen Berger, 1 catch for 9 yards and a touchdown. You just have to contain these backs out of the backfield.
Yeah, 100%. Luca said he's managing the game like he has a big time D. Pause.
That's what that's what I was saying earlier. Like, you have to recognize your defense cannot get a stop, and they're just not getting pressure the way they need to. So, I mean, you're giving up if you don't get the first down. It's like, how much of a drop off is there when you're doing the math of the chances of picking up a 4th and 2 versus punting it away and having to stop UCLA's offense inside, what were they, about the 15-yard line?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just very frustrating. And I know the team's injured, but at the same time, a lot of the guys that were struggling were regular starters too. So that's not, I mean, it's at least partially not an excuse, but the other half of it is still the guys that are always there and that are not hurt are struggling too.
Yeah. And like, to me, the injury shit does not hold water because look at last week. Wisconsin's without its starting quarterback, starting running back, its wide receiver 1, its starting free safety, and its best defensive lineman, and they beat us by 35. UCLA, if anybody saw the availability report today, that is the most players I've ever seen out for one single game. That is,
I'll see if I can bring it up to people.
Yeah, they had like 20 guys out for today. Now, I couldn't tell you each player's snap count on the season, but they had quite a few starters on there as well. Why are we the only team who can't? Yeah, why are we the only team who can't overcome injuries? Who can't have a player step in that's serviceable in the 2 deep? Like, that just doesn't hold water. I get it from an experience standpoint. When a guy's playing his first snaps in a live game, especially when it's just been, practice reps for a whole season, I get it. It might look a little rough. But why is that not the case for the teams we're playing? I don't know how to, if you want to zoom in on that a bit, Alec.
Oh yeah. It's a lot. Like, I'm at 150% zoomed in and like most of the list is taking up most of the screen.
Yeah. Sander Mark here says, I know that Fire Greg, quote unquote, is going to trend, but genuinely, how long of a leash are they going to give him? It's not impossible to win in the Big Ten after struggling. And then he puts Indiana in quotes. It's not going to get easier. Greg's got a really long leash, and I don't think any results this year outside of like Greg attacking a referee with a baseball bat mid-game or saying the most out-of-pocket stuff of all time in a presser is going to affect that. With that being said, I do believe that the arguments of some aren't going to really hold water for much longer, given that there are programs that turn around very quickly, especially in the Big Ten. Like Indiana had roughly the same difficulty of schedule we did this year. By no means have they had to play the Penn States, the Ohio States, the Oregons, and et cetera yet. Now, if you look ahead on their schedule, they do have to play Ohio State. They do have to play Michigan. So I think while they have played well, it does get harder for them. Rutgers doesn't really have that ramp up in difficulty. We just had a ton of 50-50 roughly games, not saying each one is 50-50, but it's only going to get harder in future years because we lose a lot of veteran leadership next year and our schedule gets significantly tougher. Next year, we play Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State. We're not beating any of those three teams. I'm just going out on a very sturdy limb here and saying we're going 0-3 to start the season with those three. Now, we'll win 3 other games against, little children of the poor, the FCS programs. We play Miami of Ohio, and we play Ohio University, I think. Feel pretty good about saying we'll be 3-3 roughly to start the season. And then we're going to have 6 toss-up games, similar to roughly, we probably had 8 toss-up games this year instead of 6 that we'll have next. So we can't win philosophically the way that Greg wants to play with the level of talent that we have in the program right now, from the starters down to the 3, because you're going to have cluster injuries somewhere throughout the season. Every team does. And that can't just be this gaping hole like we have. Like, the defensive line got absolutely no push today. Keontae Hamilton comes through with one of the more impressive defensive line plays I've seen in a while in a Rutgers uniform, where he's getting battled back by the guard, and he just finds a way to reach around and blindly smack the ball out of Ethan Garber's hands and catch it on the way down. Like, what a play by Keontae Hamilton there. But we just don't have enough of those kind of plays, and we were without a lot of our top defensive linemen today, and it really showed. Now, we got to have guys who are at least 85-90% of the way to the starter level players, and I feel like it's more like 60% of the way to a starter, and that's why we see these big lapses in coverage for linebackers, why we don't get any push from the edge when we're without our top 2 defensive ends. It's just it's just hard, man. It's hard to keep watching these games when you have excuse after excuse of why we're getting our asses kicked piling up.
Yeah, I also thought Eric Bieniemy called a really good game. I mean, using the tight ends and the running backs. You could see Tyreen Powell, Dariel Jabomi, and Moses Walker. They just weren't able to keep up with some of the smaller, speedy running backs that UCLA had. And yeah, like you mentioned, it's just they don't have the talent underneath right now to compete, especially when you factor in the injuries. But even if you don't factor in the injuries, I mean, we've talked about the defensive line, and Greg Schiano was talking about the defensive line, talking about how they can go 8, 9, 10 deep on the defensive line, and yet even when the starters are healthy, it's not like we're seeing a lot of guys, but we're not seeing a ton of production. And I think that's kind of just indicative of what we're seeing out there for this defense. And I mean, it's just frustrating. Like I said, I had a lot of thoughts, but now I'm just struggling to come up with anything really. It's just really frustrating to see how this goes down, because again, I thought the offense played a solid game, but it's just I don't have anything. I'm at a loss.
Yeah, Mr. G says UCLA was bigger and more athletic. I agree. I don't think they were the better team though. I think Rutgers, there's really three legs of the stool for football. There's talent, there's scheme/tactics, and then there's effort. Now, if you don't have enough talent, you have to have a better scheme and have a higher effort level than those players, than the other team. If you have more talent, you don't necessarily have to put all the effort in, or maybe you could beat a superior scheme. But typically, if you're on the lesser end of the talent scale, you probably have to be better in the effort and in the tactics and scheme department. And I feel like we've been less talented than most of the teams we faced this year, and we haven't had the scheme advantage either in any of those games. So we've had games where we've basically stuck around purely because of effort, like Nebraska comes to mind. We had some games where we were advantaged in the scheme department. Virginia Tech comes to mind. But we haven't had a consistent, strong approach from any of those 3 departments in one game, nor have we had it from both the offense, defense, and special teams. So I think consistency is key here as well, that we're not hitting on each week, which again comes back to coaching. Are we not identifying the right things on film for our opponents? Are we not self-scouting well enough? Are we not understanding that probably every team's going to be keying in on the Kenny Fletcher rollout pass, because that got totally nullified the last couple weeks? Are we not aware of some of our tendencies in terms of snap counts and things like that? Because I was listening to a few pods this past week where, especially in the run game, it was very easy to kind of time up defensive line rushes because we kind of snapped it on the same cadence each play. So it's stuff like that like I don't feel like we've done a good job of self-scouting on, nor have we done a good job of scouting our opponents on. And those things kind of just stack up on one another. I'm rambling a bit here as I'm trying to scan through some of the comments as well. What are some of the other things that stuck out to you about this game, Alec?
I mean, I know I'm usually the optimist of the four of us, so I'm usually on the positive. I guess I'll try to find some other positives. I mean, I talked about Demir Miller playing pretty well. KJ Duff had a really nice deep ball. I thought once again Ethan played well.
Yeah, Ethan did have a great game in my opinion. Like even that like deep pass to Ben Black that was a one-handed catch by him. Like they were talking about on the broadcast, like Ben Black has to know in that situation where it's tight coverage and you're getting kind of pushed towards the boundary, just jump up and hope that they'll call a DPI because he really had no chance of catching that.
Yeah.
It was a well-thrown ball. Yeah.
Yeah. One of those freshman things. Kyle Monungai played a solid game. Most of it came in the second half. He took a shot to the, I think it was, I don't even remember where he got injured, but in that second quarter, I did not think we were going to see him for the rest of the game because he really looked like he was in some pain and in rough shape. I actually didn't see that Ben Black play, but that I didn't realize that he actually caught the ball out of bounds. So, that was cool. That's about it. Like I don't think I have any positives for the defense. I thought the offensive line played solid, better than the last couple of weeks. I'm I'm really trying here. I had something I wanted to say. I had something else. I thought the tight end play was okay. It wasn't a complete disaster, but it wasn't, obviously, when you lose, your top two guys for the season, you're not going to have a lot of breakout performances. I did notice that Logan Blake got a lot of snaps, so it looks like he might have an edge. Although Mike Higgins did play a good amount too. There's just not a lot of positives to take away. Despite only losing by 3, this is not a good team that you lost to. They've been getting better, yes, but Rutgers is supposed to be getting better too with this schedule, and it's just baffling the way that's 3 straight weeks now that we've seen them kind of lose in different ways, really.
Yeah.
I mean, Nebraska, it's the weather conditions, a lot of things went wrong. Some of it may be out of their control, but they stayed in that game thanks to, like you said, Mike, the effort. The defense stepped up in big time. Last week, it was just all-out disaster. This week, it was the defense got even worse than last week, and then the offense got better. It was. I am also rambling, trying to think of good things to say.
Well, let me take the baton from you because I thought the tight ends did a really good job blocking in the run game in the first half, especially. There were a few, like when you rewatch some of these games early in the season, and you just see like Kenny Fletcher just absolutely whiffing on that like kind of cross block that he's supposed to do after he motions.
Yeah, I think that's the split zone.
Yeah, the split zone block. I thought Higgins and Blake just like put their faces in the fan and like really did a good job, high effort blocking from both of them. I want to thank George Forbes here for the donation once again. I don't think we're going bowling this year. I mean, I'm having a hard time finding 2 more wins on the schedule too. Maybe the bye week will be the cure-all. I'm not really counting on that though.
We'll see.
I thought Shaquan Loyal should have played more too. I was surprised I didn't see him out there more. He's been one of our better players on defense this year. He might be, in my opinion, it's like him and Eric Rogers have been our 2 best defenders this year. So I was hoping to see more of him. That open field tackle Desmond Igmanuson missed, leading to that long touchdown run for UCLA's QB. It's just unacceptable for a veteran guy like him. I mean, Dez has been a liability in terms of tackling for basically his whole career here. He did have that one really nice open field tackle on like a screen that'll give him credit for, but he's missing a lot of tackles this year. I think the last time I checked, he was leading the team in missed tackles, and I think he also led the team in missed tackles last year. So
I mean, you can't have that. He's what, a 5th-year player now?
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, you just can't have that. I one of the other comments that I noticed, I can't highlight it. Like,
which one was it?
Here it is. Looking good, running tempo and getting into the wide receivers. Yeah, I think honestly they looked pretty good going in tempo. I thought that was when they looked at their best on offense. I don't think we'll see it a whole lot because of just the style of offense that Rutgers likes to play. But I thought they looked good working in tempo. And another thing that Greg Schiano said that I also noticed is that Ethan did a lot better of just getting into his platform and getting throws off when he's fully set. That was something he struggled with the last 2 weeks, where he's getting off platform. Even when he's not scrambling, he's kind of like moving his hips around and his feet are off kilter. That's leading to like some bad throws, but he did much better job of that today. Yeah, I mean, it just goes back to the defense. Like Garber's he threw for 384 yards, 4 touchdowns, completed 84% of his passes. All of those were career highs for a guy that we thought might have gotten benched by halftime coming into this game. And it kind of felt like an extra gut punch when you see Jalen Berger score a touchdown against Rutgers that ended up being the difference in this game.
Yeah, that was rough. Garbers has had a really rough season. Like we've talked about, though, they've also played a really tough schedule. So, yeah, but seeing Berger score that touchdown was a bit of a gut punch because we could have had him if we wanted to. I'm not saying he would play over any running back on our team, but yeah. So Josh Tellum says Kirk keeps going back to the same plays and it's hurting the offense because the defense knows it's coming. There's no disguising anything. Yeah, there's just the play calling is very uninspiring and vanilla. I mean, I think that's the kind of stuff that both Greg and Kirk like to run, though, like stuff that's like simple yet effective. So I really don't see that changing. It's just when you have better players, simpler stuff is a lot easier to run. And obviously, we've dealt with a lot of injuries this year, but again, that's not an excuse for totally falling apart. Looking through here, we've allowed 77 points the last 2 weeks, 223 yards after the catch today. Alec referenced that earlier. Let's see here. 4-8 record.
Leaders. I was going to say the leaders in yards after the catch. Keegan Jones had 100 yards after the catch. 100 of his 114 yards were after the catch. The next highest was T.J. Harden, another running back, with 37. And then their tight end. Let me just make sure I know his name. Maliki Matavao had 31 yards after the catch. He had 6 catches for 104 yards. I think he was a tight end.
Yep. Yeah, the tight end we made look like a first-round pick. He just carved us up. He was just working open space all day. Thanks again, Delmarva Fishing, for the donation. Greg would have to Woody Hayes to get fired. Yep, totally agree there. Do I see Schiano firing the DC at the end of the season? I mean, if the season keeps progressing like this, like heads are going to roll, like without a doubt. Like, I don't think he's going to have a choice in terms of staff changes. Who do I think would get let go? I don't know. You just can't bring back this entire staff if the team goes from the expectations they had coming into the season, the roster they had coming into the season, and if they don't make a bowl, yeah, that's going to be a disaster.
I don't know if they let go of Harrison Mack because I feel like he's built up enough goodwill before this year to warrant some time when you're getting injured a lot and all of that. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see if like some other position coaches, something like that. I think Rutgers position coaches are pretty good. I mean, the defensive line, it's always tough replacing a great position coach like Marquise Watson. They hired the 2 full-time guys. Maybe the logical one is to hire a full-time linebackers coach so Joe Harris-Imiak doesn't have to do that as well. That's the obvious one. That's the main one.
Positive, Chris Long caught a contested catch. Yeah, he got lit up on that too. That was on 4th down.
It was a big one.
To extend a drive that scored a touchdown. Yeah, that was huge. Definitely probably the biggest play he's made this season outside of the Akron catch. Let's see here. We do have Greg Schiano's presser that we can watch as a group if everyone wants to do that as well. I'm just scanning to see if there's any questions that I don't think we've covered yet from the group here. Of course, I'll post somebody who's complimenting me. Mike gets it. The Jekyll and Hyde inconsistency and poor situational football is a problem. Yeah, I totally agree with Scarlet Rogue, who agrees with me, so I'll agree as well.
It's like that meme of Jerry. It's like all of the Jerrys patting each other on the back.
Yeah.
You got another question, or you can go with Luis Perez first.
Luis Perez, thanks for the donation. Great job covering our team, even during the dark times. Yeah, I can't tell you how much I don't want to do this right now, but I'm here for you guys, and I'm here because I know we all need the public square to just really feel this one. Who are you? What's the person that you want to highlight, and what's the time they made the post so I can find it?
The recent one from Josh Tellum, I hope I'm saying that right. How big of a loss was Corey Heatherman? Honestly, I think the linebacker play has been a combination of a few things, really. Obviously, the loss of Corey Heatherman. I mean, the linebackers unit was probably one of the bigger weaknesses on the team before he came in, and he really helped develop that unit. Now I believe he's the defensive coordinator at Minnesota now, right? I believe
he's
so.
the DC at Minnesota. Yep.
Yeah, so losing two veteran guys and Mo Toure. I know people are going to keep going back to Mo Toure, and I'm sure people are tired of it, but it's a big loss. And then obviously Deion Jennings as well. And it's just you got Joe Harris-Imiak doing double duty, like I said, where he's coordinating the defense as well as coaching the linebackers, where I'm sure he's capable of it. I mean, he's a good defensive coach, so I'm sure he's capable of it, but it's just not any easier. It's just those factors. And plus, you got the young guys behind them there. I know people are going to hate the word. They're developmental guys. Like Daryl Jabome had not played a lot of football before he's started this year, and Moses Walker, another high level athlete, just hasn't gotten some of the fine tuning of the position down. So it's just kind of a combination of a lot of things, and unfortunately, once again, the injury bug has just struck that room as well. And I definitely think losing Heatherman was a big part of it, though, because it's also a lot of continuity. Like when Walker and Jabome first got here, Corey Heatherman was their linebacker coach. So losing that, in addition to being thrust into a starting role, I think definitely complicated things.
Yeah, totally agree there. Looking through some scores, not many surprising scores today outside of, in the Big Ten at least, outside of the Indiana win. Indiana won 56-7 at home versus Nebraska.
Apparently Indiana got the better Cignetti brother.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that's his brother used to be the OC here, right?
Yeah, Frank Jr. Their father, Frank Sr., I believe, was a big time coach as well.
Nicholas Hatala. I think the most depressing thing is there's no easy solution. Offseason is going to suck, assuming 5-7 season or something like that. I mean, I don't think it's an easy solution, but in my opinion, the solution is just not playing football the way that you would in like 1997. Like, you're not just lining up and trying to move guys for 4 yards in like a run every single play. Not that that's what we did today, but I think if you were to like strap Schiano down and give him truth serum, he would want to have 7 offensive drives a game, and each game would just be like essentially sitting out. Like, I think his ideal is like a 17 play, 75-yard touchdown drive with a 1 yard running back dive from the 1 yard line on third goal. Like, that's how like
30 minutes of time.
Yeah. That elapses like 12 minutes of game time. Like, that's how he wants to play football, and that's just not realistic. Like, the amount of conversions that you need to continue to have versus if you were just able to create like one big play for 55 yards that eats up half the field. I know that sounds overly simplistic, but like a philosophical change is the first step I would undergo. The second, I think, is that we need to build in some redundancy on our team. And I know we're not the most well funded in terms of NIL, but we're right in the middle. We're not like at a point where we can't compete. We need to build in some redundancy in the sense that we can't just rely that player X is going to develop in an offseason to be the tight end 2 or to be the backup left guard. We need to bring in guys from the portal every year at a lot more positions than we are to boost the overall talent level on the team. So not only will competition be better and that'll bring out the best in players, but also when we eventually do deal with injuries, because this is football and they'll always be there, that we don't have this massive drop off like we do right now. Because I feel like we had an upper half of the Big Ten starting lineup, the first team, but our second team was maybe bottom 3, bottom 4, bottom 5 in the Big Ten. So when you have that kind of drop off, it's just really hard to compete, especially late in the year when there's always going to be injuries. I'll kind of dovetail that right into another Scarlet Rogue comment. Right on the issue. Mike is also right on the injury issues. We lose a few guys, the entire team falls apart. Unacceptable. You want to play with the big boys, build and execute for it. Totally agree. Should we move down in conference from John Contract? Can't believe I'm saying that. No, because our athletic department would fall apart if we didn't have Big Ten money. So just a solid no there.
Yeah, and I mean, I was going to talk about something that we've seen that you kind of touched on, and a lot of people have asked questions about in the chat, and that's the transfer portal this upcoming season. I mean, I know you have a better grasp on a lot of the transfer portal and NIL stuff for Rutgers than I do. I guess what's the move here? I guess if this season does I mean, honestly, whether they turn this around or not, it feels like something needs to change in terms of building the team.
Yeah, I mean, the move is like, it's kind of like, think of it this way. If you were inviting 10 of your friends over, right, and you're having a party, would you buy like exactly 3 beers for everybody and exactly like half a bag of chips for each person and exactly 1 burger for each person? No, because inevitably somebody's going to want a second burger. Later, if the party goes long, you're going to want food for later in the night. You don't want people leaving. And you basically want to have enough so that like any scenario that plays out, you've fed and had everybody have a good time at your party. So it feels like right now we're like getting just enough groceries to like feed a family of 4, exactly 1 square meal without any excess whatsoever. There's nothing going back in the fridge at the end of the meal. We're preparing just for that meal. And God forbid somebody invites their friend over for, dinner or whatever other scenarios. Like, we're not prepared for any deviation from that initial plan of feeding that family of 4. So I think in order to do that, we need to shop and spend maybe a little, not money wise, but resource wise. We need to get probably 120% of what we expect to use throughout the season in terms of players. And we're not doing that right now. That'd be my solution.
I'm smiling because I was wondering how long it was going to take for one of your long-winded analogies to come out.
I feel like I landed that plane, but I don't know. Maybe everybody in the chat, if that makes any sense, that's kind of.
I understood it.
Let's watch this Schiano presser, because I thought it was one of the more contentious pressers he's had. I watched it a little while ago, but I will share it here. Alec, you'll have to let me know if it's too loud when I'm sharing this.
Okay, guys, thanks for coming out and covering us and sticking around. Certainly disappointing. Something we have to get fixed. It's not the desired outcome and what we set out to do. So it's my job as the head coach to make sure that I examine everything in the program and make sure that we're doing the things correctly. I will not come up here and start to feel like the sky is falling. That I promise you. We did a lot of good things out there today. Just weren't good enough to win. Didn't play well enough to win, I should say. But I'll answer your questions and try to help you understand it a little better.
Help you understand it a little better. That's interesting.
What do you think went right? He had some injuries there, but what do you think was the main issue?
Well, you're right. We did have injuries, but everybody's got injuries. I'm not gonna go. I think more than the guys that didn't play were the guys that played that are hurting. Guys that played that didn't practice very much because.
There's nothing more powerful than you making your thing happen. Really going.
This is why TKR is better.
Practice not going to be able to play. They had to heal. Those guys, I think, again, that's what I got to look at. Is a healthy so-and-so better than a 80% other guy? I got to make some decisions that way, I think.
A little more volume, please. Sure.
I have absolutely no idea what our medical situation is coming out of the game. I think we have a lot of really tough kids, guys that play with pain. We have a belief around here, and we talk about it all the time. There's a difference between pain and injury. And in this game of football, you play with pain. You don't play with injury. You play with injury, you can hurt yourself worse, and that I'm not trying to have anybody have. But you do play with pain. You practice with pain. And, 223 yards after the catch. That's the stat that just smacks me in the face, right? We didn't tackle well. Now, why is that? Did we forget how to tackle? Michigan and Rutgers were back and forth. Last year is the best tackling team in football. The stats that they do in tackling. We didn't forget how. We didn't forget how to coach it. We didn't forget how to do it. It's mostly the same guys. But that's the hardest part of playing defensive football. And if you've never done it, then you don't understand, nor will you ever understand. And if you've done it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It looks easy. It's like a video game. Just go take that guy out and he's down. That's not the way it is. And when you tackle somebody and you're hurting, that amplifies the pain quite a bit. So I have to, because I'm in charge of personnel, I have to make some decisions what we do with young players. What do we do with guys that are hurting? Do we give them a chance to just totally get back? Again, it's not like we have that many guys, right? So, but that's what I'm going to have to do between now and heading out to California. Short week, six days, and we play at FC Friday night. So I got a lot to do. We'll keep this moving.
Greg, you scored a touchdown early in the third quarter to cut it to 5 points, went for 2 there. Could you just tell us your thinking on why you would chase points that early in the game?
Yeah. Chase points is good for
he did not like that wording.
Commentators and also good
bit.
for writers. And it's good for bars to talk about it. Like, you're sitting around the bar and you're having a beer and you say, why would you do that? Every year, we have analytics people who do it. And so this is computerized, and you look at all the college football since they started doing 2-point plays, and you run it out. And it's a very simple thing. You look at the computer, it says 1, 2. And I never go to the very edge of 2. So I don't ever want to be the outlier that, is totally. So I go in, shave a little off this end and a little off that. And then those are the situations we go for 2. Now, the hard thing is everybody would like to be able to make it a video game again and say, oh, go for 2. But how many possessions did we have in the first half? 3 possessions, right? Usually you have 5 to 6 possessions. So we got cut in half the way the game. I knew that was going to happen. They huddle every play, right? It's NFL football, and that's the way the game played. It played like an NFL football game.
Just want to pause it real quick. If he knew that they were only going to get a handful of possessions in the game, why don't you go for it on 4th and 2 from 50?
That's exactly the quote that I was referring to, and I said you have to take your chances in that first half because of the way the game was going. Yeah. That's exactly what I was talking about.
I'll pick it back up here.
And after 3 possessions, so when you go and you figure the possessions out, chasing the points is such an overused nomiker, because it's easy to say, right? You don't ever go for it before the 4th. That's not true. If you did the analytical work, you'd know that's not true. And it's not me. That's not somebody's feelings. It's math. And you got to apply it to your team, and you got to apply it to your game that you're playing that day. And after 3 possessions in the first half, I said, this is not going to be a lot of opportunities for us. So yeah, I 100% would do it again. And it's not being defiant or defending. It's math. And if anyone ever like to go through it with me, I'll show you. It's not complicated.
The injuries obviously just keep mounting. Obviously today, Kenny and Victor being lost for the rest of the season. I mean, how concerning is this going forward that the depth is just getting hit harder and harder?
Yeah, but I was really proud, right? I was really proud. I have no idea how Mike Higgins played, but he jumped in there. And Logan Blake jumped in there. I mean, I watched one play. Logan Blake ran a split zone and walloped the kid. So good for you, Logan. Now, this is not exactly the timeline I had in mind for Logan, but that's life, right? That's Big Ten football. We were very fortunate a year ago with injuries. We're not so fortunate this year. Nobody cares. That's life in the big city. Figure it out. And that's what we'll do. We'll go figure it out.
You mentioned not having a lot of guys. This is a program that's prided itself on being a developmental program. Are you concerned about drop-offs between starters and second-tier guys or second-string guys? Or do you think there is any drop-off, a significant drop-off? And I guess if there is, why do you think that is?
Let me get your question. You asked about 4 different questions. Let me get it right. Let's go one at a time.
He's so mad.
Concerned about the drop-off.
He was in a bit of a mood
ones and
today.
twos?
Obviously, understandably so.
Well,
Yeah.
at certain positions, probably, yeah. Also concerned about the drop-off from 1s to 3s, right? But it doesn't matter. We are a developmental program, but who isn't a developmental program? Some have to do it more than others. We have to do it more than others. That's just the hand we're dealt at this time. That's okay. We got plenty of good players. We had guys who stepped in and played well today. We had other guys that, when you don't have experience counts for something. You'll be a better writer 10 years from now than you are now. I'll be a better coach if I'm still coaching 10 years from now. All our experiences help us. So a young guy, can he make mistakes because he's just never been there? Yeah. But then, maybe an older guy that's hurting can't make the plays that he normally can make. So I have to do. I'm disappointed in myself as that game unfolded. I sit there and say, I wonder if I did the right thing. But you gotta make a move. You got to make a decision during the week. And, we did it. It wasn't good enough, though. We certainly didn't play well enough. When you look at it, he scored 32 points in a Big Ten football game. That should be good enough, right? It wasn't today, but it should be, especially the way our program's built. So we didn't get it done defensively, and we got to look at it and figure it out.
Ever wonder why so many people say they want to learn guitar, but very few actually learn to play? It's simple. Too many.
Are you learning to play guitar, Mike?
That third quarter, there was the play swing pass to Keegan Jones, the running
Unfortunately,
back.
I'm not.
It looked like none of your defenders went with him. Was that just a blown coverage, or were you able to diagnose that play yet?
No, there was somebody who went with him, but he went with him a little late, and he's really fast. So if you go with him a little late, there was a lot of those though today. There was a lot of those where the ball was caught. How do you have 223 yards of yardage after the catch? That means we didn't do a very good job. And it isn't just the DBs. It isn't just the linebacker. It's everybody. We didn't do a good job in the pass rush where the quarterback had the opportunity to extend plays. We just didn't play very well defensively. And that's why it was a 35-32 shootout. And I was really proud of Ethan. I thought he went out and made some really big time throws. I was proud of our young. You got a true freshman catching balls. Two true freshmen out there. You got a sophomore, true sophomore. There's a lot of good things cooking that I'm excited about. I just wish that we didn't have all these other issues, but you know what? That's life. In some seasons, you stay healthy, and some you don't. But we have to figure it out, and we have a clock downstairs that we hit, and it's 6 hours and 4 minutes an hour ago, or 6 days. 6 days and 4 hours an hour ago. So now it's 6 days and 3 hours. And by the time I get home, it'll be under 5. It'll be in the 5 days. We got to get ready to go play USC. Very good football team. So, yeah, I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of our coaches. I'm proud of our players that they can't work any harder. I have to figure out a way to make their work pay off. That's my job as the leader of this program. Right now it hasn't paid off. This wasn't like last week's game. Last week's game I thought was something that was really, really. Yeah, we got out Rutgers. I said that after the game, but this wasn't that. We said that couldn't or we didn't. There's an old saying in coaching: can't and won't. The result's the same. So whatever the result was, it was. But we got to get better. That's what we'll do.
Greg, the last 2 weeks you guys struggled to score. This week it was more about the defense. What's your biggest concern with the team right now?
Well, we didn't exactly shut them out last week. You know what I mean? So it wasn't just we struggled to score. We didn't stop them. So. My biggest concern is I need to do a better job of leading the program. That's my biggest concern. And I got to figure out how to do that because that's my job. And I'll help other people do their job better, but I got to do my job better. So that's my number one thing.
Greg, after 2 weeks of the offense struggling, what did you see from Ethan in the balance of the offense in particular?
Well, again, it's not just Ethan, right? I do think Ethan played well. I think that the offensive line gave him time. He protected him pretty well. Ethan did a great job moving in the pocket. I thought he moved. The way you move in the pocket as a quarterback is critical. If you move with your platform underneath you, you can deliver an accurate pass. He did that. He moved with a great platform and delivered an accurate pass several times today, which was critical. And again, I mentioned the young receivers. A guy that you have to make mention is Kyle Monunga. The guy's one of the top 3 toughest guys I've ever coached. I'm not going to get into what he played with, and neither will he. But what he went through today, and especially he took a hit, whatever that was, end of second quarter, and for him to return and for him to play the way he did, my hat is off to him. He knows how much I respect not only his game, but his toughness. But I'll just close it with this, guys. We will get there. This program will get there. I know that there's going to be certain people that want to cast their ballot and say, we got big problems. You call your shot. Just remember, we will get there. I promise you. So you want to call your shot now? Just call it, but know that you're calling your shot. This program will be just fine. Thank you.
All right. So who's ready to call their shot? Because this seems like a pretty fully cooked goose here this season. I'll call my shot. Sure. I don't think this team can win more than 6 games this year. After I put a lot of money on this team to go over 6.5 wins, and when they started 4-0, it felt like a pretty much a foregone conclusion. I think there's just too much that they have to overcome at this point. Alec, call your shot for this team the rest of the season.
Oh man, you really put me on the spot here.
Well, Greg said we got to call our shot, so let's call our shot.
I thought he said if only if we want to, but I don't know if I want. I'm just kidding.
Well, we're doing this. We're doing this now.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm watching anymore. I don't have a lot of confidence. This was supposed to be the get right game, and they did not get right. So, in turn, where is the confidence for the rest of the season? I think they get to 6 wins just because that's sometimes the football gods shake out in different ways. I think they get to 6, but I don't see much more than that. Maryland is not playing well. They always seem to play well against Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State, Jekyll and Hyde type team. You could see a different team each time. Minnesota, it probably should be now is completely different than what we thought. It
True.
should be considered a win based on the expectations, but you never know at this point. USC, I do not feel confident in USC at all. Not on a short week. Yeah, no. I don't know. I think they'll get to 6 just because, once again, I'm usually the optimist among all of us. I think they'll get to 6. I don't see much more than that. I don't know. I said that they were going to lose a game in November. Now I'm saying they're going to win a game in November too, I guess, if I'm saying they're going to win 6. And I don't know which ones.
Yeah.
So I'm going to feebly call my shot, as I think they're going to win 6 games somehow, some way. I just think there's too much talent on this team not to, based on just despite what they have shown the last 3 weeks. Yeah, it's not in a good place right now.
Yep. Josh, tell him, says Nebraska took our soul. That's a good way of looking at it, where we just haven't really looked the same since, start flying high 4-0. We struggle, but we stay with it. And eventually, we just run out of time in that game. I feel like if that game went to overtime, we would have won, but obviously that's not the case. Kyle is everything to this team. Without Monungai today, we're probably losing this game by a bigger margin than we did. We'll just have to say. Big Watts says Rutgers seems to have peanut butter and not jelly, or jelly and not peanut butter. We can never have both. That's a beautiful way of describing, I think, what we've danced around a bit today.
Yeah.
Your microphone's making a lot of noise there.
Oh yeah, I'm trying to manage like muting it and unmuting it, and
okay,
it's a new mic. I'm still getting used to it. I apologize to
Ooh,
everyone.
fancy.
Yeah, I have Richie to thank for that. Yeah, I think this is the perfect way to put it. Like something that we talked about earlier. Just we have one thing and then we don't have the next thing. It's like one of those memes that you see on Twitter where it's like you mostly see it in baseball where it's like a switch and it's like bullpen, rotation, and hitting, where like the bullpen and rotation are on, but the hitting's off. Like the bullpen and hitting's on, but the rotation's off, or the hitting and rotation's on, but the bullpen's off. Like that's basically what we're seeing these last couple of weeks. They just cannot put it together. And yeah, the Washington game, we all thought Rutgers could get ranked. Rutgers could make a high-level bowl game. We were thinking Florida or Arizona during winter break. All was well, and a month later, I mean, it has gone down very far. We saw some of these things really all season, but particularly in the Washington game. But it's just not. I didn't think it was going to come down this hard this quickly, really. I had a feeling they were going to lose a game or two that they shouldn't have. I didn't think it was going to happen in this fashion.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I had my high hopes for 10 wins, but I knew it probably be more like 8 or 9. Now hoping for 6, because anything other than a bowl appearance this year would be. It is such like a weird like binary cutoff, or not binary. It's just like an arbitrary cutoff to win 6 or more, or win 5 or less. But it's important. It's important to sell to recruits, and worse than last year with the team that they had assembled this year against the schedule they had in front of them will be unacceptable. Adam says Politi just dropped his article about Schiano's presser. That should be a good kicking off point for us then, because he's been on for an hour and 2 minutes now. We appreciate everybody kind of joining us here for a group therapy session. Go read Steve Politi's article. He does a great job covering the team. I'm going to do the same. Alec, send us off. What are your closing thoughts here?
That's a great question. You really put me on the spot here for some rallying words. Yeah. It has to get better. Like it just has to. It cannot get worse. Now it might get worse this week. It has to get better. That's all I can say. It has to get better. They have to find a way to turn something around. Whether it's they put up 35 points on USC or they allow USC to score 15. Something has to get better. Whether it's injuries or performance or just growth, it cannot get worse than this. They just cannot. Nobody can afford for it to get worse than this. It has to get better. That's really all I got.
I agree, and it seems like in a season of perpetually deeper rock bottoms, we keep thinking this is the last level of hell, and we find out there's another, and Dante is trying to tell us that there's 7 more, or however many levels of hell there are in Dante's Inferno. But
I gotta say, Mike, I'm surprised no F-bombs from you today. I was thinking,
listen,
guns a-blazing.
I think last week just broke me so deeply internally about this football season that it's irreparably damaged. Like my excitement for this football season jumped out of my body right around the interception at the beginning of the third quarter. That Ethan threw, we were down 21-0. It's like, okay, yeah, like this is a lost season. Like there's no coming back from this. So now I'm just kind of apathetically tagging along in the wake of the season, just wondering when the ride's going to be over. Yeah, I'm pretty broken up right now about this football season. But all right, well, there's the happy note to go off on. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back on Monday with a recap after we've digested this season, and it'll be on an expedited week because we have a game Friday night. So we'll have a pod previewing the game, and look out for maybe a pod to drop tomorrow as well. A little teaser there. Rutgers has a top target in Chris Nawoli announcing at his school at 4 p.m. East or 4 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, hopefully things get better because I think Alec said, it can't get much worse. So thanks everybody for listening. For me and Alec, this has been another Post-game live show of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.